Hello everyone, I'm Peter. Welcome to our space for true stories. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. We will select the best comments to send to the original poster op of the real Reddit story. We hope your insights help them overcome their challenges. Thank you for being part of our community. Please sit back and enjoy today's story. At 17 years old, I have celiac disease, but my new group of friends think I have an eating disorder and are planning an intervention. My parents divorced when I was very young. My mom had me most of the year, and my dad would get me for the summers. I hated going to my dad's house. Part of it was because he was stubborn, rude, and always had to have his way. But also, every time I went to his place, I got sick. Nausea, rashes, aches, cramps, and as I got older, I even started missing my periods. TMI. I went to see a doctor, but he said it was psychological stress related and referred me to a therapist. My dad wouldn't let me go because he thought it was all nonsense. My mom took me a couple of times, but my symptoms subsided, so we couldn't tell if it was helping or not. One thing that really pissed me off was how my dad ate tons of junk food and drank soda instead of water, mocking me without a shred of mercy whenever I tried to eat healthy. I think it reminded him of my mom since she was always health conscious. I snuck carrots into the house, and if he found them, he'd throw them away. At my mom's, I ate veggies and organic chicken. Sometimes a dish made me feel nauseous, but all I had to do was stop eating it, and I'd be fine. I developed the habit of refusing any food offered to me, not knowing if it was safe. I'd just say I was picky. Then, when I was 16, a new girl transferred to my school. I became friends with her, and after a few months, I noticed she avoided all the same foods as me. I casually brought it up, like, "Hey, isn't that weird?" And she nervously told me she had celiac disease and that I should get tested. I did, and sure enough, I had it. Suddenly, everything made sense. I was so excited to finally understand what was going on that I told everyone I knew. I told everyone I thought was my friend, and they didn't react well. At first they seemed fine, but I noticed all of them were slowly fading out on me. I confronted my best friend, and she told me that they all thought I was faking it for attention. They'd only heard of the gluten-free diet as some stupid fad. I broke down in tears, telling her how horrible I felt every summer at my dad's, and I couldn't believe she didn't trust me. She was horrified. She turned around and became my biggest supporter. She tried talking to the others, but they still thought I was terrible and lying to her, so we decided it was best to cut ties with them. My birthday is in August, so I had 2 more summers with my dad after I found out. He took the news of my diagnosis worse than my former friends. He'd yell that I thought I was better than him, that I was making up medical problems to feel special, and that he wasn't going to tolerate it. I suggested taking him to the doctor, but he said doctors were con artists, and he didn't believe anything they said. It was awful. To the point where he started sabotaging my food and berating me when I got sick. So I'm pretty cautious about telling people I have this disease. Between my personal experiences and hearing people mock gluten-free food on TV and the internet, I decided I wasn't comfortable telling new people. I know it's cowardly, but I'm terrified of what people will think. This is my last summer with my dad, and it's my last summer with my dad. I don't care if he rots in hell for how he's treated me like garbage. I just have to survive the next few weeks. It's not my problem anymore. You could give me advice on leaving my dad's house or calling CPS, but frankly, I've made the decision that it'll be easier just to stay for the next 3 weeks and then leave forever. Please don't focus on that part. Here's where I need help. My best friend and I have a new group of friends. They're great people, really fun. We play tabletop role-playing games every weekend. We've been hanging out since May. There are about 10 or 11 of them, depending on whether or not you count the guy who shows up occasionally for games. Yesterday, my best friend came to me and said that the others had been talking behind my back. They've put together that I keep refusing food, that I'm picky about what I eat, that I've been getting skinnier and seem sick since I live with my dad, and they've concluded that I have an eating disorder. They're planning to hold an intervention for me next weekend. Guys, I don't know what to do. This is a nightmare. I know I should tell them, but I'm so scared they'll reject me. They already have this idea in their heads that something is wrong, and now I'm afraid they'll think I'm just making excuses. And I've been burned before. I've lost so many friends after telling them about my disease. Yes, they were jerks, but it still hurt. How do I do this? How do I explain it so they believe me? I can't handle anyone else calling me a liar. I'll break down. This disease has ruined so many parts of my life, and I just want this part of my life to be separate. Please, Reddit, give me advice. TLDR, I can't eat gluten, which means I'm on a restricted diet, and due to being forced to eat things, I've been getting sick and losing weight. The last friends I told accused me of lying and cut ties, so I didn't tell my new friends. They misunderstood and now think I have an eating disorder. They're planning an intervention next weekend, and I don't know what to say. Update. 6 days later. Hey guys. Thanks for all your help. The intervention happened yesterday, and I thought you'd want to know how it went. It went well. A few hours before the game, a friend of mine, let's call him Zach, texted me asking to come over early. He hosts the games, because he wanted to discuss a game, related terms that most of you wouldn't care about. I figured this was the intervention, so I texted my best friend. I think there was confusion in the last post. This is another friend from our former group who I confided in, who followed me to the new group, let's call her Laura, to ask if she was invited. She wasn't, so I told her to come with me. Before going to his house, I did something bold, inspired by one of the comments in the last post, thank you /Ida Vetacharge. I went and bought some gluten-free Chinese food from a place I always go to. They have this amazing vegetable fried rice that I love. They're super careful about cross-contamination, and I've eaten there for years without getting sick. I brought the food to Zach's place, along with Laura, my notebook, and dice for the game. Zach seemed really surprised to see Laura there. I asked if he had a problem with it, because if we were going to talk about complex gaming issues, she should be involved since her level of expertise. I'm so sorry. I'm really trying not to throw a bunch of gaming jargon at you. He awkwardly said it was fine. Then I said something like, can I eat while we do this? I skipped lunch, and I'm starving. And I took out the Chinese food. He said it was fine but looked a little nervous, like I was freaking him out. I started eating, and he began his pitch. You/Hellphilp Celiac, actually. I didn't call you here to talk about game nonsense. Some of us have noticed some things recently that we're concerned about, and they've elected me to talk to you. I said, okay. He listed a bunch of things I'd done that made them worried for me. How they never saw me eat anything. How I always seemed sickly and skinnier. How I always seemed anxious and uncomfortable whenever food was brought up. How I refused everything offered to me. And then he dropped the bomb. You/Hellphilp Celiac, Michael's sister, has anorexia, and she acted just like you. We think you might have an eating disorder. I swallowed my food and tried not to freak out. I don't, I told him. He started talking about how no one thinks they have anorexia, but clearly something was wrong with me, and he rambled a bit, so I cut him off. I do have something wrong. It's not an eating disorder. Can I talk? He reluctantly agreed. I think he was scared I was going to say something like I was too fat and needed to lose weight or whatever. Like, he was really committed to the idea that I had anorexia. I'll try to paraphrase what I said because I'm really proud of myself for it. I know I've been losing weight in an unhealthy way, but not on purpose. I have a disease that prevents me from eating grains like wheat, barley, and rye. When I lose weight, I get sick and my body can't eat. My stomach tears up and I can't digest many things, even things that don't contain those grains. It's not just an allergy. It causes serious long-term damage to me. If I eat a piece of bread, I break out in rashes, I start vomiting, and I can get things that seem unrelated like terrible muscle cramps when I'd refuse food. It's because you're offering me stuff like Doritos and PB&Js. If I ate that, it would make me really sick. I'm refusing it to avoid making my health worse. And the reason my symptoms are flaring up and I'm getting sick and losing weight is because right now I'm living in a family situation where I'm being forced to eat food that my body doesn't tolerate. When I first met you guys, I was living with my mom and she took really good care of me, but right now I'm with my dad and he sabotages my food because he thinks I'm making my disease up and my doctor is a fraud. Zach pulled out his cue cards and flipped through them. He actually had a script for the intervention. I guess that's what I get for hanging out with people who dramatically role-play on tablets. He was silent for a long time. Then he had a few questions. But why did you refuse, like Coke? Because Coke is gross, but I didn't want to complain and make you guys buy root beer just for me. Why didn't you tell us this? Aura took this one and explained what happened with our last friend group. Okay. So what can I have in the house that you'd be willing to eat in front of me? I wanted to facepalm at this. I asked if he was serious. He was. I don't know, do you have celery? He shook his head. Yogurt? Nope. An apple? No. Seriously? He nodded. Do you have popcorn, like popcorn? That he did. So I ate some popcorn in front of him. And finally, he seemed to accept what I was saying. He awkwardly changed the subject to the game, and we talked about that until the rest of the group started arriving. When Michael got there, Zach pulled him aside and started talking to him in a way they must have thought was subtle. They kept looking over at me and not exactly lowering their voices. Michael asked if I had been defensive, and Zach shrugged and said not really. I made a point of eating popcorn for the rest of the game. Michael texted me after the game, apologized for assuming I had an eating disorder, and asked what snacks they could bring for me. I actually cried a little. I'd been so worried about being kicked out, but they immediately shifted to helping me. They're good people. So, everything turned out okay. Sorry for the anticlimactic ending. I convinced them I don't have an eating disorder, and it seems like they're accepting me. Thanks for your help.